All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to a personal selling online class session. I would like to introduce myself to those who don't know me. My name is Mr. Sfiso Goodman Mahlangu, and I'm taking over for personal selling from Mr. Steve Bothas. So, and I will brief you a bit about your next assessment, which is your next semester's test. But before I do that, quickly sharing a screen here is showing the slide for chapter 10. So please interact with me in the chat box session here. So on your Microsoft Teams here where you have a chat box session, please interact with me by showing any emoticon face there. So any smile face that you have, any smileys or any mood that represent, that will confirm that you are able to hear me very well and you are able to see the screen that I'm sharing. And today we will be basically talking about two things. Firstly, we are going to talk about your previous assessment marks. Please allow me some time. I know your marks are not yet updated, so please allow me some time to update your previous marks. So I will do that. So next time I see you in the next class, you should have all your marks 1, 2, 3, 4 on the ITS system, and I will also give feedback when necessary, including memorandum and so on. But I also want to talk about your next assessment, which is assessment 5, the one that you're gonna write in the next few weeks. So the details of the assessment, basically you're gonna write is 3 chapters. So firstly, let's quickly open some Microsoft Word here so that we are all on the same page. So I'm just gonna call it assessment 5 for now. I know you've got tests and assignments divided, but I prefer the word assessment. So assessment 5, we're still gonna post this information on Brightspace. So that will be chapter 10, that will be chapter 12, as well as chapter 13. So that is basically a structure of your next assessment. And as far as I'm concerned, you have covered this chapter with Mr. Bothas so far, but if you missed any of those classes, I will be covering these chapters with you in the today as well as in next week. So I will cover chapter 10 today, but it's going to be a different perspective. So even if you've covered it with Mr. Bothas, you get a different perspective of a chapter. So it's also going to be a reflective or a reflection. We're also going to do a learning activity. So a learning activity will require your participation, and in that learning activity, you will see that it's going to be very helpful in the assessment. So I'm going to call it learning activity 10 since we are busy with chapter 10. It's going to be an online learning activity, which is a game that you're going to play. So it's going to be reflective on chapter 10 that we are doing. So it's going to help you understand it better or prepare you for an assessment. So have a textbook in front of you. You've already highlighted some of the pages, but we're quickly going to revise certain aspects in the chapter. So let's quickly go to chapter 10. And here in chapter 10, you'll remember this is the step about closing the sale of the personal selling process. So in the textbook, you will see there at the beginning of the chapter, they talk about closing the deal requires listening to customers, like it's written also on the slide. Closing the deal requires listening to customers' needs in such a way that closing becomes a natural part of the selling process. So basically with that sentence, they emphasize one important thing there, that throughout all the stages of the personal selling, or the selling process, throughout all those stages, the most important thing is for us is to identify customers' needs. So we'll be listening to customers' needs and in a way or in such a way whereby that we can close the deal at any stage of the personal selling process, because which if we don't understand customers' needs, there is no way we'll be able to close the deal. It's going to fall apart at the end there. So I've summarized this chapter into 4 slides. So let's quickly look at them into the first slide. So closing the deal, as you can see in the slide here, it talks about the 4 aspects of closing the deal. And then these 4 aspects, first of all, we know that before you meet with a prospect, you have to prepare. So this is the preparation part. And then this preparation is towards the end of the chapter. Basically, that's the last thing that in the chapter they conclude with. So if you are highlighting in the textbook, you want to highlight that paragraph which talks about factors to plan before the sale. So that's the first thing that we have to consider. And once we have planned, then we can set up an appointment and then we meet with the potential client or our prospect here. And then once we meet with them, we want to recognize or basically to look for buying signals from the prospects. And then we respond to those buying signals. So if they do something or if they say something, we also prepare to also respond to that. And those we refer to trial clauses. It's a clause just before we implement a closing technique there. So you're probably familiar with all the words that I'm referring to here. Maybe it could be a structure that is new to your eyes and so on. However, hence I said it's a different perspective of the chapter and it's going to help you understand the chapter much better. So let's start with the preparation. These are the things that you do before. So if you're having a meeting with the client, firstly, you want to customize the approach strategy. And there is important words that you can highlight where they talk about customizing the approach strategy. They talk about conducting research. So the term research is the one that you want to highlight, is the most important one. The salesperson must do proper research regarding the prospect requirements. And when you're talking about research, you want to know, you'll see in the slides there, you've got things such as you want to know the profile of the customer or of the prospect that you are meeting with. That could be things such as their age, things such as their status, their location, things such as their job occupation. You want to also know their personalities and the interest. This will help you a lot because as soon as you know who these people or this person you are meeting for a sales presentation, actually by this stage you already have covered this information because in the closing for a sale, closing the deal, you've already met the customer, but it's just to do proper research so that when you close the deal, remember we talk about first impression last in general. However, it's no longer just about first impression now. It's about a continuous impression. So when we talk about customizing the approach strategy, what it means is that you don't want to use a generic approach. It's so boring. You don't want to meet every client and then you are using a generic approach for them. So you adapt your style depending on the customer that you are meeting. This could also include things such as clothes that you'll be wearing for that presentation and so on. So for example, if you are meeting with someone who's Zulu, it will be nice, for example, for you to wear something that is show some sort of the culture there as well, because that will help you to actually have a positive attitude as well towards the client or the prospect. So about the positive attitude, another term that you have to highlight in the textbook regarding that sentence, they talk about care, which is at the bottom of, or the last sentence in that paragraph about have a positive attitude. Care must, however, be taken. So when you talk about positive attitude, we're not talking about a fact that you like what the customer actually regard as important only. It also talk about things such as, for example, preparing some sort of an incentive. For example, it could be also something such as if it's raining, you are able to reschedule a meeting, or if a customer is actually telling you that they are busy today or they have an appointment somewhere, they need to rush, and then you are flexible in other ways. So we're talking about the prospect setting the pace there. Basically, you will see when you talk about customer setting the pace, it talks about basically them being in charge, because they want to feel that they're in charge as prospect. So remember, we do all these things before we meet with the customer. It's the preparation stage that we're talking about here. So you allow them, if they want to reschedule, for example, if they say let's meet at the mall, you allow them to meet with them at the mall. So we become flexible, so we don't have to be strict. So hence we talk about let the prospect set the pace there. There is very important differentiation that they talk about in terms of being assertive compared with having confidence. So you will see in the that page of that chapter 10, or they talk about be assertive, be confident, and then they bring in arrogance there. They also bring in aggressiveness there. So it's important for you to understand the difference as well that we have between what does it mean being assertive as well as being arrogant. So if you look into this picture there in the middle, it shows you some sort of the difference between being passive, being assertive, as well as being aggressive. So what we see there is that the more you have confidence, the more you know about your products, the more you know actually about the guarantees and the quality of the product that you are selling. You don't actually necessarily need to be rude. You also not necessarily need to have some sort of doubts about the product you are selling. So once you know your product, you become confident. It will also include things such as what you'll be wearing. So we know things such as most of the time, things such as a suit gives someone a confidence, as well as wearing nice clothes. So think about that before you meet with the prospect to close the deal. And then lastly, they talk about selling the right product for the right job. You will see that is the last thing that is discussed in the chapter. Sell the right product for the right job to be done. So it's all about the image that they are referring to here. Basically, they talk about the image of yourself as a salesperson, as well as the image of the company that you are working for. So you make sure that you knowingly that a product maybe has faults, you don't sell such product. Knowingly that a customer cannot afford the product, you don't have to sell the product. It's no longer about sales. It's always about customers' needs that we are considering. So in this slide, or in this column that we see here, we are referring to the preparation, the things that you do first while you are preparing to close the deal. So customizing the approach, once again, it means that you will meet customers differently, or you will have the different presentation for each and everyone, depending on who they are and their needs. And then you'll see in the middle, they really talk about the confidence part. Be assertive. So understand the word assertive versus the word aggressive versus the word confidence. Those are the important aspects that we consider under preparation. And then let's get to buying signals, which is in the beginning of the chapter. You'll remember what is a signal. So you must first understand the word signal. It means a sign. Since it's written there, actually the first four letter words, it's a sign. So in a car, or when you talk about the indicators, we always like you use signals for you to indicate that you are turning left or you are turning right. So it's some sort of something that you will see from customers, that, or they will show you some sort of a sign that they are ready to buy, they are ready to commit. And then those signs comes differently. You've got verbal ones. The first one in the table there, you've got things such as question and request. And you'll see maybe you met with the customer or with the prospect, and then they ask you questions. The questions, I think you can write NB in the textbook as well, there where they give you some sort of different questions or different of type of signals there. So in the beginning of the chapter, you'll see that you've got a sentence written buying signals, or a paragraph written buying signals, and then you've got 5 bullets. Just those 5 bullets, they talk about the following are few signals and how the salesperson should respond to those signals. And then the first one being asking questions. For example, you've got table 10.1 showing you those questions. What is the lowest price you can offer? Where can the product when can the product be delivered? So all those questions are some sort of signals. It could also be requests. For example, you'll see in this slide, we put questions and requests as one. That's because a request and a question in most of time, they both end with a question mark. So at some stage, you'll have some challenges trying to differentiate between a request and a question. So to me, as well as basically in terms of literature, there is not much difference between a request and a question. So that's why they are combined there. So a request, it could also be some sort of something such as that you see in the textbook where they say customer request such as can I pay with a debit card? It's also a question. So hence as an example there. So anything that a customer says and asks could be a direct question, could be a request, is a signal, in other words, that they are ready to buy. Or maybe they have some sort of agreement on benefits. They show some sort of agreement that the benefits of the product, they agree with them. This could be something such as, this color goes well with my eyes. I've been looking for this model for years. And then you have another one that they show you in that bullet. This product is good enough for my children. So with agreement, what we see is that there is no question mark. So that's what differentiates between questions and agreement, or request and as well as agreement on benefits. With agreement is a statement. This is whereby a customer acknowledges the benefits of the product and say them those benefits out loud. Basically, it also talks about things such as whereby a customer says things such as this product, it suits me, or I look good in this product. They can take pictures for such, and that as soon as they take pictures, we're talking about some sort of, they examine the product or they take ownership of the product. Like you see here at the bottom, maybe we are trying to sell the car, and then we've got the customer or the prospect and is examining the product. Test driving of the product goes as well. So as soon as we see them showing those signs, we recognize all those buying signals, but we must respond to each and every buying signals that they are showing here. We cannot just ignore them because we'll have trouble when we come to close. So that's when we come to trial close. Those signals could be non-verbal as well. For example, we're talking about facial expressions, non-verbal signals. For example, maybe the frowns disappear, they smile. So usually a smile show some sort of happiness that customer is, or the prospect is showing some sort of commitment to buy. It's also a buying signal. There's a slide showing you some 6 basic facial expressions there. That we should recognize mostly as salespeople there, and we always come for joy. So we want customers to have this face there, which is joy. So whenever they show a different face, maybe they are sad, or they are surprised, or they fear, or they are angry, that buy signal could change, that you need to adapt as a salesperson, or give them a chance to actually. But we'll cover this in terms of response trial. So let's quickly look in terms of the trial responses. But before we get there, under buying signals, non-verbal, we also got a friendliness. If the customer becomes friendly, this is usually shown, you can highlight in the textbook under non-verbal signal there. That's the second paragraph. They talk about a customer may move closer to a salesperson, talk in a low voice, as if sharing a confidence. This can be seen as a sort of conspiracy between them. So that's one of the buying signals that we recognize as salespeople, that as soon as they become free, they become comfortable with us, and then we can have some sort of it will look like a conspiracy that we are having a secret. It's because of the friendliness that they have. So as soon as customers show such moods or show such non-verbal signals, we can conclude, or we can assume that they are ready to commit, and we must respond to this. So let's look into the trial clauses. You will see in the textbook there are written responses to trial clauses there. And then these trial clauses, remember, a trial clause is just before, so we are just testing water, in other words. So how do we respond to all these buying signals? If they ask questions or they have some sort of request, as a salesperson, it's important to ask questions as well. You can highlight as well on top of the page. There is the first thing in a paragraph, responses to trial close. Ask questions to gauge the customer's thinking. So basically, in other words, you can look at into this into two different perspectives. The first perspective is that a prospect is showing a signal, and as a salesperson, we want to respond to that signal. And secondly, you can look at trial closes with a different perspective, whereby you look at trial closes as a situation whereby you want to test water, whether the customer is ready. So you just want to see whether the customer is ready to commit. Can I close or can I not close? So you can ask questions that will determine whether the customers are ready or not. For example, you've got the list of questions that you can ask for trial closes in the textbook. How do you like the features so far? Should I explain anything else? So all those questions, they will help you to determine, or actually they respond to those questions. Whether the customer says, yes, I'm happy with this color or not, it will help you to determine whether the customer is ready so we can move into closing or not. So a trial close is just a step before, and it also works in terms of responding when they ask question and as well as they have request. They also talk about respond with questions. This will give you more idea of what the customer is looking for. So instead of just saying yes, maybe customer is asking things such as, can I pay with my debit or debit card and so on. You'll see on table 10.1, you've got some sort of responses that you can use where you respond with a question. For example, the first one is, what is the lowest price you can offer me? And as a salesperson, we can use a response such as, would that be for cash price? And then we get more information, as well as we get to see whether the customer is actually at the stage whereby they are ready to commit. So we advise or recommend to respond with questions as a salespeople to actually see or to get more information or gauge customers thinking there. And then they also talk about reconfirmation as a trial close as well. It's necessary for you to confirm these are benefits. When you reconfirm, usually you confirm the benefits. It could also be about the contract. So it talks about things such as the benefits that you've discussed, the contract, the year. You'll see at the bottom of the page there, you've got some sort of an illustration whereby you go through the document. So you will have a discussion with the customer. Maybe now it's written after you meet with the customer, showing all the hidden costs, the fees, the rates, basically the fine print that is there. And then you reconfirm with the customer. And then if the customer say yes, you know that they are ready to buy. So you take them step by step then. If the customer says no to any, you solve any outstanding issue as the next one that you have there. For example, if a customer was not happy about something that was minor. So you'll see in the textbook, you also want to highlight where they talk about any unresolved issue needs to be attended to. Even if it's deemed a minor, deal with it quickly, effectively, without giving it undue attention. Even if it may cost you a sale, it's worth it for you to deal with those problems now, because you remember in terms of the law, we can get sued as a salesperson at a later stage, whereby maybe you sold the customer. Let's use a car as an example, and then there were certain issues that the customer was not happy with them, and then you still sold the car. So in terms of legality, in terms of the brand, we want to deal with all these outstanding issues immediately. We also advise you to not look for problems as a salesperson. And usually the problems are in this illustration. Customers have problems usually with two things. It's usually the cost and the price. And the cost could be the hidden fees. So the rates and things such as the charges, if insurance, returns, policies, all those things. If a customer does not mention any of them, or basically, or a customer has no problem with any of the benefits that you have discussed, there is no need for us to bring in what previous customer or based on our experience, what we know about the product, and which include problems. So there's no need for us to tell the customer all those things, because we don't want to look for problems. They might cost us a sale. So by not looking for problems and solving outstanding issues are different things. Solving outstanding issues, it talks about the issues that the customer already have mentioned. So we want to solve that. But if they did not mention anything and we know it's a problem area, this could be things such as mostly cost and the price. There is no need for us to go into detail there, because we know it's going to cost us a sale at some stage if we tend to look for problems. So we stay away from that. During a trial close, you also want to justify the decision of the customer that is making. So it's in the textbook, it says help the customer to justify the decision. They're talking about the buying decision there. So in other words, we're talking about actually supplying all the information needed. That is the first thing that you can highlight under that paragraph. It's written, is at the end of that paragraph. Salespeople should ensure that they supply all information needed to help the customer justify this, the buying decision. So what they talk about basically there is that in the buying process, we have those steps whereby customer will go from first step, need recognition, and it goes to evaluative of alternatives, and then he buys. And then there's a last step where they talk about whether a customer is satisfied or not satisfied. And we talk about cognitive dissonance. That's usually when they refer to that is whereby you regret your buying decision. It happens a lot. And I'm sure you've also, as a student, you've experienced such throughout your lifetime, whereby you made a decision to buy something. After you bought that thing, you experienced some sort of unsure whether it was a good deal or it was not a good deal. I can hear some mic being on. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm sorry, I'm not on the Teams app, so I can't see if you raise hands this side. But feel free, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions to ask, just unmute your mic and ask the questions, and we can actually solve it right away. And so, as we are talking about justifying the decision of the customer, let's say they are buying a car. When we have customer justify the decision, this could be whereby we explain the benefits to the customer or showing them that they actually got this at the lowest price. So most of the time, when we give them an unbeatable offer, for example, we compare the prices. We know with game, when you go to game stores, they claim that if you get the product at a different store and it's at the lower price, you can actually go to game and they will give you the difference. So some sort of idea such as that one it's whereby you you have a decision justified that actually when I purchased from this was the best deal. I can't get this deal from anywhere else. So we can offer customers such information and it will help them justify whatever decision or the buying decision that they are making. So it talks about supplying all the information needed. That's the important part of justifying the decision. For example, if you buy a car, most people look in terms of the installment and say, you know what, this is the amount of money that I will pay, but that is not true. So we need to supply customer with as much information as possible. So if, for example, let's quickly run a quick search here. I just want to show you an example. Let's say normally, let's say VW Polo TSI installment. And you will see that on average, if you take the basic line or the basic model, it's usually 5,000. So if you look here, let's say average is 5,000 per month. Customers need to know that they will not pay 5,000 per month. They will pay almost 10,000 per month, because as soon as I'm going to run a different search here and say, let's go and add and do the add-ons. First of all, we're going to have insurance. So if we say TSI insurance per month, it's more than 1,000 rand per month for actually for this Okay, obviously it will need us to run a code, but it's just an example. Then you've got those other add-ons. This could be your balloon payments and so on. So when we justify the decision of the customer, we try it by all means to give them all the information that you'll end up spending 10,000 a month to service this car, including your petrol, including your rent-off, including your service plan, your motor plan, all those things. We supply them with all the information so that they will know the decision that they are making. It's actually the good decision. It will be better for them to purchase, maybe for example, a car that costs, like, let's say they are working on a budget of spending 5,000 per month, then let them go for installment of 2,500 per month, a basic model. So instead of a Polo, then maybe they go for a VW. I think it's up. That is the basic model, which can go from 2,000, and then when you add the add-ons, it goes throughout to 5,000. So we want to make sure that they are happy throughout with the decision. And the last part that they talk about there, they talk about avoid interruptions, no interruptions, and you will see this picture, because when you talk about interruption, you will think about a practical example. What could be an interruption? In this picture, I'm not sure if you can identify, but there is actually 5 interruptions that a salesperson could occur while they are closing the deal. One, we see a cell phone there, so you make sure that your telephone is off because it could cost you a deal. You see a coffee there, you avoid such interruption. Maybe to make coffee, you're going to make coffee, can cost you a deal. Things such as alarm clock, maybe you have a meeting. This could be something such as whereby you plan with the salesperson that I'm going to meet them for 1 hour, and it goes more than 1 hour. If you have another meeting, you don't want to have an alarm clock regarding that. Your sales assistant, or talking about the assistant, you want to make sure that he knows that you are busy. Other salespeople, they shouldn't open the door or just come in quickly. So you avoid any interruption during trial close as well. So because that could cost you a deal. So in the textbook, they give you, they talk about undivided attention, which you should highlight, and then they talk about telephone, but maybe with a pen or a pencil, you can quickly write the other interruptions that you should avoid, which I've just mentioned there. And then during the trial close, like I've said, remember, we are just testing water at this stage. We want to see if the customer is ready. So, for example, you can ask a question we've discussed. The question could be something such as, should I explain anything else? So if a customer says, no, I'm happy, we know that we can now apply the closing technique. Or if it comes to, maybe we've got some sort of solving any outstanding issues. So if a customer stage complain about maybe the speed of the car, or maybe they complain about certain feature of the product, we explain to them why there is such a feature. For example, this could be about, maybe a car is complaining about the engine size of the car, saying it does not have fast performance. Maybe it's a 1-liter engine. If we are salespeople at the dealer, and then it's maybe person who loves speed, and then we can explain to the customer that this is about fuel consumption, and then we compare, and then we show them that with either 2-liter, they will spend twice of fuel consumption. So such things, they help the customer to see and then to commit, and then hence it's a trial close stage whereby we are just simply trying to see if we can close the deal or we can't close the deal. So if we get a yes here, or we actually we have recognized their buying signals, we have actually responded to that buying signals, we are ready to close the deal. So let's look at the closing techniques, which is the last thing in this chapter. So we've got basically about 8 of them. However, I've structured them differently on the slide here for another reason that will help you to remember all of them. So you will see they are divided into 3 columns. So in the first column there, you will see I start with the assumptive method. I come with the complement method. I go with the direct request. Where else in the textbook, it starts with the direct request, benefit summary, and so on. But I just want to share some idea, because when you go to the assessment, you especially to recall, when you have to recall the closing techniques, at some stage you might struggle if you don't have some sort of a strategy to remember this. So in this table, what we have, we've got the first 3. that you should use as a salesperson, and as they fail, you continue to these three. If as they fail, and then you can come to the last one. So basically, it's a sort of a logical way or a chronological order of these closing techniques, in a way that whereby, okay, we have a meeting, we have been discussing our product with the client, we've discussed the cost price, but right now I really want to close the sale as a salesperson. So I must apply some sort of technique. The first thing that you should use the assumptive method. The assumptive method, it works beautifully. And the nice thing about the assumptive method is that you don't necessarily have to ask the customer if they want to buy or not. You simply assume that they are at the stage whereby they will actually buy your product. How does this work with the assumptions? You will see in the illustration here at the picture, you've got some sort of a trial. I want to talk about things such as your Netflix, your WWE, your Showmax, all these things with trials, whereby they say they give you a 1 month trial or they give you a 14 days free trial. What this ETV also launched their new video on demand recently, I think it's Evoid, and basically the idea, they are using an assumptive method to close the subscription. They will say in that 14-day trial, you're not going to pay anything, or in that 1 month trial, you're not going to pay anything, but after that, you're going to start paying. So when you get this trial, you give out your information of credit card or your debit card. Although I'm not going to pay, you can't start a trial without giving out that information. So you must sign up. And when you sign up, they want those details. The idea is that you will forget. You won't cancel the subscription. So let's say I'm signing up for Netflix right now. I will go to Netflix website. I will say start trial. It will want my information, and then I put all the credit card details, and then it says 1 month free trial. So I'm on a free trial. They are, as Netflix, they are assuming that I won't cancel that subscription because I will be happy with what I'm watching on Netflix. So as throughout as I watch Netflix, I tend to forget. So the buying decision is based on the assumption method. I assume that you will actually end up buying the product. With the car, they do the assumptive method as well. Even if you don't like the car, they always invite you for a test drive. The idea is that once you are inside and you are driving the car, you see the comfort and so on, you end up buying the car. So it's an assumptive that whoever goes for a test drive, that's why they are willing to spend money on petrol, money on the driver, and all the time with the test drive. So that's how assumptive method works. It also works similar to the next one as complement method. So these two, assumptive and complement, they work hand in hand. Another thing that you have to know about the closing technique, you don't have to use one. Whenever you are closing the deal, as a salesperson, you can use a multiple of these closing techniques. You can use all of them at the same time without the customer seeing that you are using them. You can use two. For example, this one of a free trial, it's also an assumptive, at the same time is a complement method. Remember, a complement method is whereby we actually flatter with sales with our prospect. We persuade them to buy by actually giving them a compliment or two. So a compliment is not something such as you are beautiful or you're wearing a nice clothes. Compliment here, it talks about incentives. It talks about things such as rewards. So when we give customers a free trial, it's a compliment as well. So if you give customers something such as a free gift when maybe they are buying a product such as a car, and then you give, they haven't purchased yet, but you give them maybe a T-shirt that is written BMW. It could work. It's a compliment. It could also work to close the deal. A customer might actually end up buying that car because of that deal or that present incentive you gave them. If this two does not work, remember we haven't spoke to the customer with these two. We haven't said we are closing the deal. Hence, I've put them in this method. We simply use them. It's us who knows as salespeople. But if we see it's not working, let's go for a direct request. A direct request is where, Yebo?
Is those two, they go together. Is it because they are trying to motivate customers to buy their product, or?
They go together, yes, 100%, because they are motivating the customer to buy the product, which is the compliment. So when we motivate the customer to buy the product with giving them a reward, it's a compliment. But now it's also an assumption, because you cannot give a free gift or a reward without assuming that you're going to get something in return. So we assume that if we give you this t-shirt, or if we give you this trial, you'll end up buying the product. So that's why I say they go together, because it's some sort like using your own words to motivate the customer to buy. Yes, that's the reason.
Thank you, sir.
100%. Thank you for that. I think it brings more clarity as well, and as well as for us to understand which one we can choose to say we will use this one against the other one. So let's say you've tried both of them. You motivated the customer, still doesn't buy. What next? Go for a direct request. Direct request is exactly what it says. Are you going to buy? Here is an order. For example, in a professional industry, how do they do direct request? They simply give you a purchase order. So when you look here in the illustration, you've got a purchase order. I give you a purchase order, or which is it's some sort of an invoice telling you how much you're gonna pay. As soon as you sign this purchase order, it could also they also refer to it as a purchase offer as well. As soon as you sign it, it means you agree. So if I give you this is a direct request. So a direct request, it works, but it's dangerous. I have to say it's very dangerous closing technique to use. That's why I put it number 3 after you've tried these two, because at some stage you can try all these compliments. For example, this could be something such as whereby they've already came to the dealer, they've drove our car, which was a test drive, and that was an assumptive method that if they do test drive, they will buy. And then we gave them a t-shirt, but they left and said they were gonna think about it. If they don't come back to us, we must give them a direct request. So we send them an email, for example, to say, here's a purchase offer for a product, and so on. So if it's a no, it's a we still have more options. That's why I put them in this chronological order. So if customer, for example, says this direct request is too expensive, they look at the quotation is too expensive, then we can negotiate. Hence, we get to the negotiation method. So another thing that I have to mention about negotiation method, it's also written in the textbook. So you want to highlight under negotiation method, whereby I think it's line number 5. The salesperson may use any one or more of the methods mentioned in this section in combination with the negotiation method. So with the negotiation method, the textbook was not actually direct which one you can use with negotiation method, but here on the slide, the remaining methods, you use them with negotiation method. You cannot use negotiation method with the above, because when you do a direct request, you are not negotiating with the customer. When you're doing compliment, when you are doing assumption, remember there was no communication that we've done with customer that you buy here. So negotiation method will be the remaining 4. So anything method that we use here, it's a negotiation method. So how can we negotiate with the customer? We can use the benefits summary. We can use the balance sheet to negotiate with the customer. So the difference between the benefits summary and the balance sheet is that here when we negotiate with the customer, we're only showing them the FAB. So what you want to write there is the FAB, the features, advantages, and the benefits of the product. That is a good side of the product that we're usually referring to, the FAB. We don't tell them about the bad side. There's no disadvantages that we mention to the customer. Whereas with the balance sheet method, we are actually giving customer both. We tell them the pros and cons. So the pros and cons of owning a car, the cost, as well as the transport. So you will see with the benefit summary with the features, if we are selling a car, the feature could be something such as a small engine, and then we know it saves money as a benefit. But we don't explain the disadvantage to the customer. However, when we are using a balance sheet method, remember a balance sheet in mathematics or in accounting, it refers to the positive side and the negative side, your assets, your liabilities, some sort of a balance sheet method, credit, debit. So it's the same thing here. We refer to it as a balance sheet, but we're referring to the pros and cons, which are advantages and disadvantages. So the difference with the benefit summary, we don't mention the disadvantages. On the balance sheet, we do mention the disadvantage. What you want to take here is that you cannot use benefits and balance sheet together. It's impossible. You have to choose one. But I can use negotiation method with balance sheet. I can use negotiation method with benefit summary. If we see that it still doesn't work, we've tried to negotiate with the customer, give them the good side of our product. We also try to explain the bad side of our product. It still doesn't work. We just have to agree to disagree with the customer. And that is agreement on minor points. And that it's a situation whereby we say, okay, you know what, we can see you are not happy with these disadvantages. Let's just agree to disagree on these minor points. So for example, let's use something simple on minor point. How does it work? Let's say a customer is not happy about the color of the car. So we try to explain the benefits. For example, it's a white color. We try to explain the color that, you know what, a white color, it does not show that easily. It lasts longer. There's some sort of that. We also try to show the bad side of the color white, maybe to say maybe many cars are white in color, so you won't have a differentiating factor, which was a disadvantage. And it still doesn't work. So it does not agree. So we can have an agreement on minor points. For example, take it the way it is here, the car on a white color. After 3 years, you can come back and take a new car, and then you continue with the same installment. So it's an agreement on minor point, meaning that we agree to sell you this car, although we know you're not happy with this certain feature, or you're not happy with this certain benefit of the car. So it's an agree to disagree situation. You will see a picture that I'm using there. A salesperson is agreeing with the prospect, but he's holding a knife behind, as well as the salesperson. The prospect is holding, you'll see a weapon behind there. So we agree, both of us, knowing that it's gonna, at some stage in the future, it's gonna lead us to some sort of an issue or a problem, or it's gonna cost us this deal. So agreement on minor point works as well, whereby a customer is not happy at all with a certain product. We can also agree. Excuse me. Any question? Okay, so it also works with the alternative choice. So the last one that you see here on the closing technique, alternative choice one. So the alternative choice method, we are closing the deal by giving a customer not what they wanted. That's how the alternative choice works. So the word alternative, you'll remember, it means something different than the one we are offering, an alternative plan, plan B, plan A. In that illustration at the bottom there, you've got different types of models of a car. So a customer came for a certain model, but we did not agree. We couldn't negotiate. The customer was not happy. So at the end of the day, we must give a customer something. If you give them a different brand or a different product or a different model, it's an alternative choice. So at some stage, whenever you plan for closing a sale, you must always have an alternative choice, meaning that if they don't buy this product, let me sell them a different product, which is, maybe it could be a cheaper product. It could also be a more expensive product. It also works with a more expensive product. For example, let's say DSTV, we are DSTV salespeople, and then we are selling compact. We see a lot with the compact subscribers, and then is that DSTV, it actually started as a joke, saying DSTV is stupid, or DSTV, how can it advertise DSTV to people with DSTV? Because usually you'll see all these adverts about DSTV on DSTV while you're owning DSTV. They are trying to upsell. The idea is to upsell that if you are on compact, they try to move you to premium. If you are on DSTV access, they try to move you to compact plus, and so on. So it also works with an alternative choice. Even if a customer has purchased, that's another thing I have to mention about the alternative choice closing technique, is that even if a customer has already agreed to buy a certain product, we can also use alternative choice as in a combination. For example, a customer has agreed to buy, for example, our car in a dealer, and then we give them an alternative choice to say, you know what, since you are taking this car, instead of taking it for cash or instead of taking it for with Standard Bank or with West Bank, take this car on our own finance house. Take this car with a BMW. If you are at BMW, take it with a BMW, and you will pay this premium. So it's also an alternative choice in that way. So it works both ways, whether you've failed or you've succeeded in your closing techniques here. So ladies and gentlemen, what you see here in this slide is a summary of your chapter, basically. So your chapter is summarized into this, your chapter 10, showing you the steps that you need to go through: preparation, buying signal, trial closes, and closing techniques there. What we have to not to leave out is a bad salesperson. So you will see in the textbook, you've got about 3 different paragraphs talking about a bad salesperson. So we shouldn't leave that one out. So for example, you will see that they talk about in the beginning of the chapter, towards the beginning, they talk about attributes of a good closer. They talk about next step problems with closing. And then when you read continue, they will talk about essential elements when closing. And at the end of this chapter, they talk about common mistakes in sales calls. There is an easy way for you to understand all those different sections. Is that if we as salespeople do not consider all this above, we're going to have mistakes, we're going to have problems. So in other words, the opposite of this, it goes to common mistakes of making a sales calls. I want to illustrate here. We've got about 4 columns, and then in these columns, we've got about 5 examples. So if we're going to say everything that is listed here, if we have to write it in an opposite, you will see that it will be written in a theory in the textbook about being a mistake, being a common mistake when we close a sales call, or being a problem when closing a sales call, or being an attribute of a bad seller or a salesperson. So let's start with preparation. If you wanna use this in an opposite manner, you will say, if let's say a question was saying, name 5 mistakes when closing a sales calls. I can use only the above. I can use the above headings, all of them, and have those sentences. For example, I will say the salesperson does not prepare. It's there in the textbook. I will say the salesperson does not recognize buying signals. The salesperson does not use trial closing techniques. It's there in the textbook as well as a mistake. So if you want to go further, for example, you can say, in terms of buying signal, I just want to illustrate one example. You can say a salesperson does not recognize verbal or non-verbal signals of a customer. Or you can say it could be something such as a salesperson does not ask questions, does not reconfirm with the customer if they are happy with the benefits. You will see all of those theory, all of those sentences. Anything that is opposite here, it becomes a mistake, it becomes a problem when you are closing the sale. So in other words, what I'm advising you as students is that as you learn about all these aspects, and then you've understood the aspects of being a good salesperson, what I should do, you should not think that you don't understand the bad salesperson, what they shouldn't do, or the mistake. Because as soon as you have this, you also have the opposite. Anything that goes to the opposite, it becomes a bad mistakes or problems. For example, things such as a sentence, no interruptions or avoid interruptions. It was a suggestion that you must avoid interruptions. So a bad salesperson now will be interrupted. So if we say, what are the common mistakes? You can write there, the salesperson does not avoid interruptions, does not put the cell phone on silent mode, does not give customer undivided attention. So think out of the box there in terms of giving practical example or it's also the same theory that is in the textbook as well, whereby we talk about common mistakes that or common challenges or common problems when closing the sales. It's just the opposite of all this, what you have here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, since you will be having an assessment on this chapter, I will also prepare a short assessment, which is going to be fun and it's going to be in a game mode. I'm not sure if you have been introduced to quizzes before. So if you have not, I'm going to introduce you to quizzes today. So how quizzes works is that is a live game, which means that as you play on the phone there, you will see on the screen your scoreboard, how far you are doing. So how do you play the game? So I'm going to quickly start it now. So what you need to do, you can open a new tab, or basically if you are using a smartphone, for a best game experience, they recommend you to use a smartphone. So if you have a nice smartphone in front of you and you're sitting in front of the laptop, you can also use your nice smartphone to play the quizzes, and then on the screen of the laptop, you are looking at your scoreboard and so on. And if you are using only your smartphone for this class, you just have to go to Google Chrome or open a browser. You know, Microsoft Teams apps, it can work in the background, meaning that you don't have to close it. You can still be able to hear the voice and while you are on the browser. But if you are using a laptop only and you are having a desktop, you can just open a different tab there, or you can just open your browser if you have a Microsoft Teams apps running like me here. So I'm going to start the game here, and it's very easy. It's going to ask you to just put your nickname. So let's quickly see. It's about 8 questions. So I'm going to make it 1 question, 1 minute. So please take your time when you answer these questions. So don't rush to answering them. Take your time to understand what the question was. And as you play the game, please have a look at the screen as well. That I'm sharing here, because you will see your nickname, whether you are number 1 or number 2. It also helps you to look at whether you are doing good with the game, you understood the answers or not. So I'm going to copy these instructions and paste them in the chat box that we are using in the Microsoft Teams app. So basically the important thing here is the game code and as well as the link. So you want to go to join my quizzes, and then you want to enter that game code there, and then it's from there it's gonna, you will see the game itself. So let's quickly paste that here in the chat box. So you've got those instructions in the chat box. Basically, if you wanna follow with the screen, what you wanna do, you wanna copy that sentence there, join my quizzes.com, and then you wanna go to any website, any browser, you wanna paste that, join my quizzes.com. And what it's gonna ask you here is gonna ask you for a game code. So you also wanna copy the game code that you have there, 647273. And then you wanna paste that game code here, and you wanna click join. You will see it's gonna ask you for a name here. Write any nickname that you want there. So for example, any nickname, if you prefer original name, it's fine. You can set these settings. They're only gonna be for you if you want the game to play music or not. I would suggest not, so that you concentrate. And then as soon as you click start the game, you will see there's already another player here. So I'm gonna start the game now, because some of you are already ready. And then I'm gonna mute myself. So don't mind the silence. I'm still here, but I'm gonna be quiet so that you concentrate on the game while you're playing the game. So we're gonna discuss feedback, let's say in the next 8 minutes at 2:10. So if you have any questions, just unmute your mic. I'll be here.
So, sir, this is a math game. Oh,
It's not a maths game. It's a personal selling game. It's not a test. It's not a test. It does not have marks. It's just for you to understand the chapter. So yes, you can play the game, but it's not for marks. So it's not a test. Don't put yourself too much pressure on that.
So is it called BuzzFeed quizzes? Oh, Minya.
Contestant re kgotsa kae?
Sorry, are you
Yeah,
having problem to play the game?
No, sir, you can't find it.
Sorry?
I can't seem to find it on Google. Is it BuzzFeed?
No. It's join my quiz. Are you following the screen? Look at the moment. Look at my screen. Do you see this sentence return join quiz that I've highlighted?
Yes.
Yeah, you wanna copy that and put it in the link here up here. You can also put it on Google, and then it's asking you for a game code. So you wanna enter game code there.
Found it, sir.
Okay, 100%.
Honestly, we have to do this thing right now.
Yes, it's live. It's live. So it must be done right now. It's not gonna be available after the class. I'll end the game. It's only live. So you must do it now. Yes.
So, sir, can you show us the steps again?
In the chat box here on Microsoft Team apps, here where you are talking, you see the chat box, the one here. Do you follow with my cursor of the mouse? So the steps is just this one that I've pasted there. The link you just you paste and then you enter game code.
Okay.
All right.
Sir. Yo, never mind.
I can hear you. What's wrong?
Number one. Mm. You.
Say if you are
Boy.
that zero kanjani. How?
Aye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna end the game now. Unfortunately, if you are still playing, I must end the game so that we can discuss feedback to see questions that gave you troubles, as well as to understand why you got them wrong. So, like I've indicated, it can only be live. So I'm sure it's also ended on your side if you're still playing. So firstly, congratulations, MJ, for maintaining the first position. Will you unmute your mic there and just say a few words? Maybe you want to thank your mom, your dad, your parents, NSFAS, anything there?
Aye. Aye. I say, if you are my brother, Bob, I like to thank everyone. Say.
All right. Thank you for participation. Yeah, like I've said in the beginning, today is just for you to introduce you to the game. So on our next class, you'll know about the game. You'll play the game thoroughly. So every class will have the game for you to reflect on the assessment. So since today it was the first time you played the game, I understood that most of you have some technical difficulties. So it's understandable, but next time. So let's look at the questions that gave you problems, quickly discuss feedback and see basically in an assessment, in a test, we don't want to repeat the same mistake. So all the questions with the red, the ones showing red are the ones that gave you troubles. The one with the yellow, it means you scored nicely. A good score is more than 50%. So let's start with question 1 to question 4. So looking at in terms of question 1, question 1 was asking you, you can see 11 incorrect answers, only 6 correct answers. Question 1 was asking you, which aspect of the closing the sales call is the salesperson considering when he conducts research to customize the approach strategy based on the prospect needs, their interest and personality. So at this stage, the salesperson is busy conducting research to know more about the customer so that when he presents he goes to this to the presentation to close the sales calls, he wants to make sure that he customizes the strategy, meaning that the sales presentation is different from each customer. So you'll see most of the answers here. Some of you chose closing techniques, some of you chose trial closes, but the 6 players who chose the correct one, it was the preparation stage. We do this when we are preparing. Remember, it's the time whereby we're trying to understand the customer. We haven't met with the customer. By when the time we recognize the buying signals, we have met with the customer. Trial close, we are with the customer. So here we are not with the prospect yet. So just know that anything that deals with preparation, so just to take you back on the slide, that will be the first column. We will do all these things before we meet with the customer. So you'll see that comes from the first part whereby we talk about customizing the strategy for each. So let's look at number 2, which also gave you a short accuracy. And then question number 2 was asking, you will see that it's only 1 correct answers. That is with 13 incorrect. So this one, it needs feedback as well. It was asking which aspects of a closing the sales call is the salesperson considering when he acknowledges prospect questions as well as the request. So by acknowledging, it simply means that we recognize those questions, we acknowledge those questions. So you will see only 1 person got it correct. Those were buying signals. Remember, when a customer or a prospect asks questions, prospect is asking question or is making a request, we consider that as a buying signal. So it's not a trial close yet. When a salesperson is responding with question, it will be a trial close. So remember, at this stage is the customer that is actually initiating. So hence it was a buying signal there. And then if you look at the next question, which also had some short accurate, but is better. 7 players got it correct. Which aspect of the closing sales technique is a salesperson considering when he pays attention to prospect non-verbal signals, such as the facial expression? So remember, verbal signals, that is a buying signal as well. Non-verbal is also a buying signal. And the last question that also got a few answers. I see most of you chose closing technique, but the question was asking which aspect of the closing the sales call is the salesperson considering when he asks. So you can see here is the salesperson that is asking question. When he asks the prospects questions and he reconfirm the benefits. So as a salesperson, if you are asking the questions, you are confirming the benefits to the prospect, you are trying to do a trial close there to see if you are ready, the salesperson is ready to commit or not. So basically, those were the only 4 questions that gave you some tough time. But I think overall, you've done very well. Like I've said, it was the first time you played quiz. So let's talk about the next classes. So next week, we will discuss the next 2 chapters that you are writing test with. So we've covered chapter 10, we'll cover chapter 12. We're gonna skip chapter 11 for a reason that is not included in your next test. So we're gonna do chapter 12 as well as chapter 13 next week. So ladies and gentlemen, I think it has been fun. You enjoyed the game as well. So it's also part of the learning experience. Some of the things you'll remember from the game while you are doing your answers. Like I've indicated in the beginning of the lecture that I will sort out all your marks. So please forgive me at this stage. Let's leave the mark issue. I will sort it out next week when I see you. I'll tell you more your marks when they are uploaded on ITS and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the class and as much as I did. So in conclusion here, before I conclude, I see there is a hand. Princess, you can unmute your mic and just ask.
So I just want to inquire about the SIG test because we submitted the SIG note to the lecture, but we haven't written the SIG test.
Okay, so regarding the SIG test for personal selling, what you need to do if you've submitted any evidence or an email to Mr. Boats, can you please forward it to me? But what I will also encourage you to do is that if you know you are missing any test, write the test, and then before we mark the test, write the test. Even if you did not submit to me yet, write the test and then we'll sort it out once you've written out the test, because that's when we'll be marking. So the test dates for the SIG test, I think they are posted on Brightspace. So if you go to Brightspace, they are there. But your question in this regard was regarding submission of that email. So you can just forward the email to me. But even if you you did not previously done that, if you missed test 1, or you missed test 2, or you missed test 3 or test 4 due to any issues, load shedding, anything, technical difficulties, as long as you've got a 0 for that, you did not write at all, write the SIG test. And in conclusion of the lecture, please comment with your mood in the chat box here. Use any smiley face. If you are happy, just participate with a smiley face there, or if you are sad, sad face, angry face. So in conclusion, please show your mood there in the chat box just by showing any smiley face that represent your mood. It has been fun, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you, talk to you again next week. Yebo?
We don't
Yebo?
have to sign the register.
Your register. The register is this one that you are doing. Comment with any chat box in the chat box there with any smiley face there.
Sir,
Yebo?
manje ke my phone le Shandis. It's in reply la. iPhone ngishaya smiley face.
iPhone. Yenzi set face, mangafuni smiley face.
Man, ngizenza kanjani? Angikhona ukureply, angikhona ukwenza nix la.
Don't worry about it.
Better technology, better.
Ngizokhomenta comment yomuntu. Mslehe, ngiyangihleka ngabe niyanginceda. Ha. Asibuya next week.
Yebo.
I have a question.
Yeah, bye.
Technology.
Yeah, ngakuzwa, you can ask.
Where were you all along?
I was busy with my other
Say
subject.
that again.
I was busy with
Manje
other subject.
ziyavela indaba. Sizwani, ziyavela indaba.
Hey.
I feel so welcome here. Okay, let me end the recording. Remember, I will post this on YouTube and I will share the link when you prepare for your assessment. And then you can just watch the video for you to revise. So I'm going to end the recording now.